What's up, everybody? Welcome to State of the Nation, the Athletics Raiders podcast. I'm Jimmy Durkin, joined here, as always, in Alameda by Vic Tafur. How you doing today, Vic?
I'm doing good. It was a beautiful day outside for football, and just 2 hours of watching the guys hone their craft.
This is the third and final open OTA. We, of course, next week have the mandatory minicamp. This is all voluntary, as you know. There's one guy who's used the word voluntary a lot when he's just chatted with us from the sidelines. Is Reggie McKenzie. He likes to keep pushing. He was even asking us why the hell we were there today. This is voluntary, guys. I think we know why he keeps pushing the voluntary aspect of this whole thing.
Exactly. Number 52 is still not here, and sure everyone wants to know when he'll show up. If he'll be here next week for the 3-day minicamp, my guess is he won't be. I think there's still a little bit of a ways off in terms of getting to a deal. I think everybody wants to get it done, but as Reggie told us a while back, it's a lot of money, and so why not take your time and make sure everyone's happy with the finished deal.
Paul Gunther talked to us today, and he was naturally asked about Khalil, and said that Khalil's going to have a lot of catching up to do, and
it's true, but
a little bit.
But Khalil's so good, and he's he's such a powerful, dynamic athlete that obviously he's going to fit in right away. And as far as the adjustments and the assignments, he'll pick it up pretty quickly. And I just primarily his job will be to move forward and to wreak havoc. So I think that won't be too big of an adjustment for Khalil.
As long as he sees where the quarterback is and goes and finds him, I think. And that's not just to simplify Khalil's role and say he's only a guy that goes after the quarterback. He's a very good run stuffer.
Right.
I mean, he's a very versatile. He's a do-it-all defensive end, but. I guess we talked a little bit about this. You got a chance to sit down with Paul Gunther last week, and he talked about Khalil's role, and they do have some stuff in store for him where it's not going to be just always lining up on one end, going forward. They are going to put him on the right side, put him on the left side, kick him inside. So I guess from that aspect, there are some things he's going to need to pick up just in terms of everything they want him to do.
Yeah, I think I'll definitely see him taking on the guard a lot, inside, maybe on third down, kind of like the old Justin Tuck role when he was in the Giants. So I think Khalil's up for a new role, up for new adventures, new wrinkles. So I think it'll be great whenever he gets here. I think Gunther obviously is very excited about having him at some point. And right now there's enough other pieces to worry about where not worrying about Khalil is not really that big a deal, I think, at this point.
Definitely. Well, let's talk some observations from today's practice, and something that it takes like one tweet, and then people start writing articles about something that they weren't even there to see.
Man, we got to watch what we tweet, man. People go crazy. But we tweeted out that the first, I think it was 2 plays on the walkthrough. 2
snaps and a walkthrough. Kolton Miller was lined up at right tackle.
Right.
Suddenly he's the Raiders' starting right tackle this year, right?
Right. So obviously, at one point, Gruden said that. I gotta stop saying obviously. I just realized.
that's
someone
a drink
told me
word,
on Twitter that's a drink word. I use that word too often, so I'm writing it down. Don't say obviously. So the plan for Miller is to be in the left side. And Gruden at one point told us he's not going to do much work on the right side. That's not going to be his thing. But today we saw him there for a couple of plays. So it wasn't long because obviously, it's amazing how I do that. I don't think I. But so Penn will be in the left side if he's healthy. Today he was able to do some things, individual drills, not team drills yet. But so they kind of rotated Penn and Miller and Brandon Parker on the right side a little bit, just to give, I think, Colton a taste of it. Like at some point during the season, if you need him to do that, if you have to, you will. So I just think, but I don't think it's a point yet where we're saying he might be in the mix at right tackle. I think it's still Brandon Parker's job to lose, I think, on the right side.
I mean, the good thing is for Kolton is that as his sophomore year, right? He came out as a junior, so he was a left tackle his last year at UCLA, but the year before he had played right tackle, so it's not like that's a position that's completely foreign to him. I mean, he's done it enough that if he has to, say come training camp all of a sudden or mid-season all of a sudden, they can if they get him a few reps there. I mean, he's capable of going over there, but
he did say that at the press conference when they first got here that he had a kind of a hard time going from right to the left side of UCLA. So I'm sure that raised some eyebrows. The Raiders coaches like, let's just focus on him doing this well, and that will be his place to play for the next 10 years. So I think that will be his role, left tackle. Whether or not he can do it right away and place him down, we'll see. But I just think today was kind of like a in case of emergency, break the glass kind of deal.
One other way to possibly look at it is if they are giving him a couple of reps here and there at right tackle, that could be an indication that he's picking up left tackle well enough that they feel like okay, we can mix you a little bit. You're doing well enough over there that we can try to mix you in over here. So maybe that's a great sign.
That's a very good point. And Gruden has said that he's doing well. That both he and Parker are picking up things that pretty fast as far as the offense and where to be in the wrinkles. So that's definitely a possibility.
One thing, I think my favorite thing to watch out there when they get in those team drills is watching Bruce Irvin go up against him, because Bruce Irvin just loves trying to terrorize him.
Yeah, going against two rookies on either side, definitely Bruce is having a good time. He's having the ball out there, which is good for everybody. It's good for Bruce. It's good for the young guys to kind of learn, get burned a little bit through the fire and kind of get better off of that.
Yeah, we're seeing that defensive line, kind of what we're looking at now. Obviously, there's no Khalil Mack out there, so until then, you can't judge who the personnel quite is of the starters. But for the most part, you're getting Bruce Irvin on one side, Tank Carradine on the other, with the inside tackles being Justin Ellis and Mo Hurst, the fifth-round pick. And I know Gunther talked about Hurst today. Said, yeah, he's a little bit ahead of P.J. Hall right now. P.J. Hall, the second-round pick, a guy from a small school. Mo Hurst, a guy who talent-wise was higher than a fifth-round pick. And you asked Gunther today about what were you thinking as Hurst kept tumbling down, and he was saying, draft him
now, don't wait, do it now. And they finally got him in the fifth round, and he couldn't believe it. He's just a guy who at Michigan definitely was an impact player. He's definitely a good penetration guy inside. And Gunther mentioned at this level he'll have some adjusting to do in terms of double teams and kind of the strength of guys, but you can already see, like Gunther said, you can kind of tell even when they're wearing shorts and no pads, you can see if a guy has what it takes or knows what he's doing is going to be able to play for you. And he has a really good first impression of both those guys, both of Hurst and Hall. Hall today had a pressure on Connor Cook, led to an interception. So just to get inside pressure was so lacking last year. Yeah. And those two guys both show signs that they can do that, which is huge. And then Arden Key actually also flashed on the outside. So the three rookies they drafted early on this year all seem like they have really a good chance of participating and also contributing.
And the other guy Gunther talked about was Tank Carradine, who he called a big surprise that he's coming in. They really like what he's doing. Obviously, we talked about he's getting those reps there with the ones. A guy that's playing on the end in the base defense and then is able to kick inside in pass rush situations, which they like. They always like guys that can kind of do a little bit of everything. And we talked about how Khalil will get moved around. If they have a guy like Tank Carradine that can come in and do that, there's Mario Edwards Jr. in that whole rotation.
That's kind of the role they want Mario to do. That's kind of Mario's role.
I think Tank's a little bit higher on their list right now than Mario.
Yeah, something to watch. I think definitely Mario was not mentioned, and he's definitely kind of more on second team snaps so far, and obviously Tank's done well, obviously. So I think both he and also Vidal Brown's done a good job. Defensive end who last year kind of came on the practice squad. He's definitely flashed a little bit. So there's good competition. There's definitely guys at both inside and outside spots who want to make this roster. It's going to be tough. I mean, Gunther said that, I think it's going to be a tough competition throughout the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, and the great thing, as always, when it comes to defensive line is, you're not like it's not like you're relying on two defensive tackles and two defensive ends. I mean, they want a lot of guys that can contribute there, and they are starting to look like they might have a good core of guys that can contribite. Now, we've got to see it happen, but I think the personnel there is better than it was a year ago.
Yeah, and again, it's early. They're not wearing pads, so everything is kind of taken with a grain of salt. But I think just the players are excited about Gunther's system and about the new coaching staff. I think Gunther and Gruden are excited about some of the raw ability they see in these players, and I think that's right now looks like it's going to be a good mix.
Yeah. In the secondary, we saw some interceptions today and talked with Sean Melvin, and he mentioned there's been quite a few of those big plays from the defensive backfield.
Like you said, there were 6 so far, 6 interceptions the last few weeks, and at one point there was a play where Melvin broke a ball up and Gilchrist picked it off and ran it back, and the entire defense, like all the guys on the field, the subs, all ran after him into the end zone. It was kind of a cool scene. So I think just people are excited about what this defense can be. There's a mix of really young players, a lot of veteran guys he brought in, and the idea was the veteran guys to push younger players and kind of get them ready to get the edge to them. I think you can see that today, that there's definitely a common hunger to get this team on track.
Obi Melifon, who was out there participating in team drills, I guess he worked in a little bit last week. I think in last week's show we mentioned that he hadn't, but I guess he worked in a little bit.
At the very end,
yeah. So he was more involved today, not with the first team. I mean, he's clearly not in that kind of competition at all. It's just about him getting some reps, period. I know I asked Gunther about it, and she's like, we need to see him out in the field and not in the training room. So small step in the right direction, not not anything majorly significant, but Reggie Nelson was very effusive in his praise for Obi.
Yeah, I would you say he likes him, the physicality and the strength he has, and obviously that's why he drafted him, because he has all those.
Everybody loves his body, right?
He has a great body. I just think, like, at this point, like you said, getting the cobwebs knocked off a little bit. He hasn't played for a while. Trying to find a role. I'm sure he's wondering what his role is going to be, and today he's dropping back a little bit, kind of not really attacking the box too much. So I wonder, when he came in, he's supposed to be the big tight end guy, but I'm not sure that's going to be in the plans with the new regime. I'm not sure he's going to be on the tight end. So I think they just want to see what he can do once he's healthy, and I think I'm sure he does also. I think Obi must be dying to know how he fits in here, and he's got about 2 months to really find a role, or else he might be on the bubble.
I know the first play that I really zoomed in and watched him was he dropped back in coverage and then couldn't even make it out of his break without stumbling. Cobwebs are definitely there. It's understandable for a guy who hasn't played a whole lot of football.
Yeah, I'm sure if you're a second-round pick, and I'm sure there's some question marks in your own head, like exactly, why is this not going as smoothly as 1,000 ago? I should be playing more. I should be an impact guy. So there's always some doubts going to creep in at some point. I'm sure you're fighting that off, and I just think he wants to prove to the coaches that he can, be a part of this. I think that's what he has to do.
Reggie Nelson, Derek Johnson, and Rashawn Melvin were the three players that talked to the media today. A few kind of takeaways that I had from that. Reggie Nelson kind of got a little smile, a grin on his face when asked about last year. It didn't sound like he was going to be back, and he seemed to credit, obviously, Gunther's presence with a big reason why he's back. And, we know that Raider fans aren't happy that he's back, but he is back, and we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, he mentioned that he hasn't played in this defense in a while, so it's kind of a lot of it was new to him also, which I don't really believe. But I think he knows what's going on. I think he, I'm not sure he had a lot of options where to go as far as I think this probably was the place where he want to end up. I think he's pretty happy. I think he definitely did not feel he played well last year. I think he wants to prove that he's a better player than he showed last year. I think he's worked in well with all the veterans they brought in. It's definitely a good mix of influence in the younger guys. And, yeah, I think Gruden right now has everyone excited. Gruden and Gunther have guys excited about what's coming up.
One thing that Derek Johnson mentioned that did jump out at me a little bit is the complexity of the Paul Gunther defense, where he admitted it might take toward the middle of the season before they before he and maybe even other guys in this defense, before they fully know what this defense is supposed to be doing, before they have a full grasp of it. Gunther's told us that these guys are picking all this stuff up quickly, but it's being installed in little pieces here, and week one they might not be fully ingrained in this whole Paul Gunther defense. It might take them a little while.
Yeah, Johnson mentioned for him right now, terminology is a big deal. Terminology is new for a lot of the guys, so that's the first hurdle you got to cross. And he wants to really get a full grasp of it, so he knows what he can do as far as moving guys around, kind of getting adjusted to the teams, the offensive looks that the other teams give them. So he mentioned the preseason will be big for this team, kind of a chance to really play in games that matter, or don't matter really, but matter more than obviously practice. And so I just think he wants a chance to kind of get these things rolling the right way. So I think he's confident it'll happen. He just doesn't know when.
Yeah, Melvin, I know he was talking about it, kind of his role, the cornerback's role. Says it's going to be a lot of man-to-man defense on the outside, and with the defense really trying to apply a lot of pressure. I think we saw kind of in the past, especially when they brought in a guy like Sean Smith, who had traditionally been a good, big physical corner, but didn't really fit well into how they asked him to play here. Going to this kind of strong man-to-man defense, trying to apply a lot of pressure. Do you think the Raiders are well suited to be that kind of defense, and that can lead to some improvement there?
I think so. Irvin should do a lot better in this role. I think just being a strict pass rusher, and we get Mack back. Arden Key could be the third guy. And Melvin has a lot to prove. Melvin wants to show he's number one cornerback. The Raiders want him to show that also. I'm not sure what that means long term. Like, if he has a great year, he's probably going to go somewhere else next year for more money. But at least for this year now, he has a chance to really show his worth and take on number one receivers and assert his will. So I think that's a good start for the Raiders. Now, Conley, everyone thinks the talent's there. So that could be a pretty good starting duo at cornerback with Leon Hall and Worley kind of backing those guys up.
All right. We got a special guest today, and we have a Super Bowl champion on the podcast, a guy who owns a Super Bowl ring, not as a member of the Raiders. Of course, he would be a little too young for that, but as a member of the PR staff of the Baltimore Ravens, Raider fans can enjoy that because at least they beat the 49ers in that game. Raiders Media Relations Coordinator Billy Jones. What's going on, Billy?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate that intro.
Yeah, well, talk to us about that experience of being on a PR staff winning a Super Bowl. Is that I mean, it's not the same as winning as a player, but do you get kind of caught up in that? I mean, obviously it's a busy week, I'm sure, but what was that experience like?
Yeah, well, the first thing I do remember about that is I didn't sleep for about 3 weeks leading up to that and afterwards. But yeah, you do kind of get caught up in it a little bit. I think one of the reasons that I got into public relations was because I didn't see myself as a player. You know, I wasn't good enough to actually play sports, but PR was close enough to the team, you know, that you could feel a part of it, and, you know, you share the ups and downs, and I think that's one of the coolest parts about the job. So you always want your team to succeed, and quite honestly, you know, it doesn't get much better than making it to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. So, you know, that experience was really cool, and some of the players that was around the team, you know, I caught at the tail end of their careers, and, you know, Hall of Famers and everything, and you know, the organization had been through a ton, you know, starting when John Harbaugh came in 2008. They had been deep in the playoffs every year, and I caught them at the tail end when they finally, you know, bust through the AFC title game and then eventually won the Super Bowl. So it was a really cool experience. The media aspect of the Super Bowl and the playoffs is really another world once you get to the divisional round. The media demands are just really, really astronomical, and you know, Super Bowl, as you guys have both covered Super Bowls, it's quite a show down there, and you know, you just trying to keep your head above water,
especially in New Orleans.
Yeah,
New Orleans.
Exactly. The game is in New Orleans, and you know, we were playing the Niners, you know, very historic and great franchise, and.
You're not allowed to say that on this show.
I have a question. So back then, were you single? Are you wearing the ring to nightclubs, and you kind of using the ring to boost your game a little bit?
You know what? My now fiance and I actually started dating during the playoffs, like right as we entered the playoffs. So we had just started dating when we went on that playoff run.
And where's the ring? Do you keep it do you have it mounted on your? Over your fireplace?
I don't actually. I keep it. It's with my parents right now. They have a safe that I keep it in. When I came out here, I just kind of decided, I don't think I'm going to wear this all that much, so kept it at home, kept it safe. But now that I'm heading back to that area, and you know, leaving the Raiders, I might have it out a little bit more.
Billy is leaving. The last day is Friday.
Last day is Friday. Spent 5 years here with the team, 5 great years here with the Raiders, and you know, just moving on to different opportunities, different, you know, path of life. So,
what was your favorite game?
I think my favorite game here with the Raiders was actually, it's kind of an odd one, but the game that's always stuck with me is in 2014 against the Chiefs.
The Omar game.
The Thursday night game against the Chiefs. I don't know, that game, just the finally getting our first win, and the way we got the win was, you know, prime time, and like you said, you know, all that was around that game. It was a really cool win, and you know, Tony Sparano was the interim head coach at the time, and you know, just the kind of the relief and the weight off our shoulders. That was a really cool game, I thought.
Your in-game role with the Raiders, a lot of times you're the guy basically down on the field, right? So a game like that, were you down on the field? That was a wet, rainy game. What's the experience like for you? What are you doing during the game? You know, in your role, and obviously a lot of stuff after the game, kind of coordinating interviews. But what are you doing in game?
Yeah, so my role when I went through the interview process, they were pretty upfront with me that they needed, you know, this PR representative needs to be our sideline person, and the NFL mandates that each public relations staff team has a sideline representative. So from my first day here, I've been our sideline, served in the sideline role for the team, and it's one of my favorite parts of the job because there's not many jobs that you can hold where you're actually on the sidelines. You know, I'm not in the bench area, but I'm right outside the bench area. And my main role down there is to work with our head athletic trainer, who with the Raiders here is H. Rod Martin, and relay pertinent injury information to the press box, the networks, the broadcasters, all that. And, you know, the NFL mandates that you update player status that are not playing, or, guys that have been missed a significant amount of time, and it's a phenomenal role, one that I've really enjoyed, and I also work with the sideline media, the network sideline reporter, the photographers, and it's been a great role. H-Rod has been great to work with, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And then post game, the rest of my staff will come down around the 2-minute warning, and if we're winning or it looks like we're going to win the game, we talk about some of the interviews that we need to execute right at the gun. CBS, Fox, NBC, ESPN, those guys all need post-game interviews, and ESPN might have a sideline or a reporter there at the game, NFL Network. So we kind of coordinate those on the field as well.
What's been which player that you've been working with, I guess, the last 5 years, do you think is the most misunderstood player?
Yeah, and the first guy that jumps to my mind is Amari Cooper, and not that he's misunderstood as like a bad guy or anything. I just think he's very quiet, he's very reserved, and he is that way, around the building and everything. But once you get to know Amari, he's actually a really, really intelligent guy, a really great guy, a really caring guy, and some guy that I've really enjoyed getting to work with over the last couple of years. I think he's incredibly bright. As well as obviously very talented on the field, and I think Amari, everybody thinks he's just kind of quiet and maybe doesn't care, but
never smiles.
Yeah, I mean, he's
got him smile at the press conference a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, he's opened up a little bit, I think, publicly, but he cares just as much as anybody, and he's a really good guy to be around, and he's a really funny guy too.
How much of a pain in the ass is it working for Will? I mean, he's just...
No, man, I really enjoyed working with our entire staff, and under Will, it's really been great. He's given us the opportunity to grow and really recognize a lot of our professional goals, and it's been fun. We do a good job of working hard when we need to work, but also keeping it light and making sure everybody has fun. And I feel like we say this a lot, but during the season, when we go to training camp at the end of July until the season ends up in December or January, you see those guys more than you see your significant others and families. So it's good to have a great working and personal relationship with everybody on the staff. And obviously, we spend a lot of time together, and it helps to have great media members and great personalities covering the team as well, because we obviously have to have a good working relationship to each get what we need.
We're all just a bunch of sarcastic jerks. So you can admit that. I mean, about every 5 lines that comes out of us, especially when we're talking to the PR staff, is pretty much sarcastic jokes. And
yeah, it keeps us on our toes. It's good though. So.
How challenging has it been? I know there's been a lot of changes in the media over the last 5-10 years, both bloggers and social media. How challenging has it been for you and for the players?
Yeah, I think it's certainly something that has changed and has made our jobs, I don't want to say more difficult, but you have to certainly know who's covering the team. And I think it's an added challenge because there's just so many different aspects of media that exists today. Some people just want to have a YouTube channel, and that's a different medium than we've dealt with in the past, and Twitter is such a big medium now that we're constantly monitoring that, and Instagram pages, and the way people consume information is just so different that there's so many. It feels like you're getting hit from every direction. Something pops up here or there, It's very different than even when I first started in 2011 in the NFL, and to see where it's come over the last 20 years too is pretty remarkable.
Without naming names, there's got to be times where you've opened up Twitter and you're just like, God dang it, why do they have to tweet that, right? That's got to be part of the job here. Just see it all of a sudden. I wish that guy hadn't tweeted that.
Yeah, it is, and I think that those moments certainly happen, and there are a lot of things that as a public relations professional you say, I wish he hadn't tweeted that, or I wish he hadn't have fired back at that fan or something like that. That goes without saying, but I think it's kind of interesting when you see athletes with a direct connection to fans, or or whoever they may be trying to reach kind of express their own opinions and everything. But yeah, I've certainly had those moments where I've opened up Twitter maybe late at night one time or first thing in the morning, be like, geez, that's not great. But yeah.
All right, Billy. Hey, we really appreciate you coming on. We've enjoyed working with you over the years, and best of luck with whatever's next. And we'll miss you around here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it, and I think that it kind of goes without saying, but I've really enjoyed working with all the media members, especially you guys, and it's been a really fun 5 years, and I appreciate everything from you guys. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, now it's time for State of the Nation Mail. As always, you can ask us your questions on Twitter using the hashtag SOTNMail. We'll also take questions and comments on the post on The Athletic. So if you have a question for next week, go ahead and ask on this week's podcast post, and we'll try to get to it next week. And we'll start with a subscriber question. Comes in from Rob J. How do you guys see Griff Wayland contributing to the team? He's not likely for a wide receiver spot on the 53, but maybe special teams or practice squad. I hear he's been able to show off his swiftness in OTAs.
His swiftness. I guess he has looked pretty swift at times, but I think it's going to be hard to get a role. I think Kyle Wilbur is more of a guy, I think, in terms of special teams role. I think they like him a lot there. The receivers, you got Ryan Switzer, guys who are going to return kicks. He's going against Dwayne Harris. Seth Roberts still in the mix. I'm not sure there's a spot for him there. So I think at this point it'd be an upset if he made the roster.
Yeah, and I do not believe he's a guy that would be practice squad eligible at this point. So he's been around for a while. He's 28. He's had he's been on some rosters for a while. So yeah, I don't think he's practice squad eligible. So it's got to be 53 pretty much, or he's probably out of luck.
Probably a guy who had a better chance of making it before that Ryan Switzer trade. I think
that hurt him.
That probably killed him.
Yeah. All right, well, the next question comes in from Anders. I heard the O-line came into OTAs really fat and overweight, something that Vic reported for us. Is that a concern?
I think most of those guys have lost the weight. I think I'm trying to think of examples of names I can say. It was Denver Kirkland, one of them. Denver, maybe one of them. I believe a couple other guys. I think they've all lost the weight, and I think they're back in good graces.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like these guys are going to get in shape, but it still kind of leaves that bad taste of an impression when a guy who knows that he's got to come in and make a good impression on a new coaching staff doesn't come in shape. But I mean, if you put in the work here, and you can make up for it.
Yeah, I think we said that. Like the drafting of the two tackles in the first 3 rounds was obviously about Donald Penn, but was also about the rest of the guys on the roster from last year. The new coaching staff didn't have a lot of faith in those guys as far as being able to come up and take a job in terms of starting lineup. So I just think that was a bad start for those guys.
All right, next question in from Maurice. Does Seth Roberts get a spot on the wide receiver depth chart for Week 1?
I've been thinking that, hearing that Seth might get traded at some point. I think that's the plan. I think come training camp, if a team offers pretty much anything, I think Seth will be gone. I just don't think he's a fit. Obviously, he had some good games here. He had some good moments here, but I think the staff was looking at the guys they brought in. We mentioned Switzer already. We mentioned, obviously, Martavis Bryant is going to have a big-time role. And even I just don't see a place for Seth Roberts in the roster. I could be wrong. He could win guys over in training camp, but at this point, I don't think he'll make the roster.
All right, next question is in from Justin. Vic, explain the change to the Messi shirt as your profile pick.
It's not really hard to explain. I don't root for many things in life. I'm pretty much an objective sports journalist 24/7.
You root for good stories, a quick game.
I root for good stories and drama, but my dad was born in Argentina, so I definitely I have the flag waving at home, and that's my thing. Every 4 years, I kind of go nuts. I make empanadas, have a lot of parties, do a lot of drinking. And
but you bring in empanadas here.
I should now. That's too much work. I make them for
this guy's admitting he's making empanadas, and now he doesn't share.
I make them for myself and my family and friends. I'll bring some in, but they're pretty good. And Messi's not done right by me the last 3 World Cups, but he's still my guy. I still believe this is the golden month coming up, and I just want to share my joy with my Twitter followers so they can enjoy this ride with me.
Well, I mean, and now the Athletic has gone all in on soccer. We've got a whole we're going to have a ton of World Cup coverage, I think.
I wear a big-time soccer website, so it just adds to it. But I know one guy on Twitter is like, hey, take down the picture. I'm not going to follow you. I'm like, oh, okay.
That'll break your heart.
That makes a lot of sense. But, so for the next 6 weeks, I'm rooting for my guy.
All right. Well, the next question in from Orange Sea Raider. Vic, are you going to cry when Argentina doesn't make it to the final?
I'm not sure I cry every 4 years. I definitely, it ruins my week. I'm not in a great mood because I get so fired up. But I'm fully aware of the possibility that I might be sad once again, but I'm not going to go there quite yet.
All right, Raider Mashman wants to know, we talked about this guy earlier, Fidel Brown, is he a situational pass rusher, do you see? Does he make the final 53?
It's going to be tough because we're just talking about the numbers they got there. I mean, he had to beat out, with the list we came up with, he had to beat out, I think, 3 of the following 4 guys. You got Tank Carradine, Mario Edwards, Eddie Vanderdoes, and Hester, who actually played a lot last year inside. So Hester could be in trouble. But those are 4 guys who all had bigger roles or bigger, reputations than he had last year. So that's tough to beat out 3 of those guys.
Yeah, because if he were to just be like an edge guy, I mean, last year they really only carried Khalil, Bruce, and James Cowser. I mean, Shalik
Right.
got waived, and he came back to the roster at some point, but they didn't really. They're not a team that really is in position. Last year, I mean, obviously we can't judge anything on last year. Different coaching staff, they're gonna structure the roster differently, but be hard to imagine them carrying. With guys like Edwards and Carradine kind of being. Both end and inside. If you're just a situational pass rusher on the outside, I don't know. I mean, he's looked good out there, but he's got some work to do.
And they're very high on Arden Key, so I'm not sure he's going to beat out Arden. So it is tough, but he is showing well, and that's all they can do is you do your best and you make an impression. The coaches make the coaches' decisions hard, and I think he will at this point at least.
All right, final question from Brandon. Could you guys see Obi ever playing linebacker? Big guy and starting to see a trend, it seems, with DBs moving up.
This is going to sound mean, but I'm not trying to see Obi playing safety, so I can't see him playing linebacker. We all need to see more out of him. We don't know what he can do, so I don't get the impression he can be a linebacker. I don't get the physicality or the playmaking ability. So I would say no. I'm not sure that's in the mix. I think he's probably too small. I mean, I know he's big for a safety, but he'd be small for a linebacker.
Yeah, you'd have to pack on 25 pounds. I mean,
yeah. Let's get him at safety for. Let's worry about safety for now.
I mean, at this point, we don't know that he's an NFL player.
Yeah, it's amazing for a guy, a second-round pick, but there's just so many questions, and he's got, like we said, he's got time. He's got 2 months to really figure things out, find a role, and maximize his potential in that role. And otherwise, it may not be good.
Yeah, a guy like him, when you consider as a second-round pick. That makes a P.J. Hall in the second round not look like so much of a risk when your last second rounder, I don't even know if he can play in the league.
Yeah, I mean, you take away the Derek Carr and the Khalil Mack and Gabe Jackson class, and Reggie McKenzie's not had great drafts. I think you definitely can look at, and he's banking on the new coaching staff really bringing out more out of these guys than the last staff did. That's possible. But I'm not sure the new staff is really doing cartwheels over the guys they have from those draft classes. So I'm not sure that his class is going to look a lot better in 2 months. But we'll see. We'll give everyone a chance to change the impressions that people have of them. But I wouldn't hold my breath as far as the last 3 draft classes having great players that came out of it for the Raiders.
All right, well, OTAs are done for us. We've got mandatory minicamp next week, 3 days of access. You get to get 3 straight days of watching the Raiders practice for 2 hours. You fired up about that?
I am, man. This is my life. Yeah, I mean, you learn so much just watching all the stretching and all the kicking. We forgot to mention the kicking drills. Yeah. The kicking drills today was interesting because Eddie Pinheiro took all the kicks.
He's their starting kicker.
It sure seems that way. I mean, Giorgio did not get 1 rep in as far as the kicks go. He watched Eddie take 7 kicks. He didn't make all of them, but 7-0 that's not a good ratio for the guy who was the guy last year for Giorgio. So all the signs point to the new blood being given the job, and it seems like that's the way it's going.
It's funny, this OTA role for Giorgio is actually very familiar because this is always his role in OTAs as the backup kicker who doesn't get to kick much.
Well, back when he was a cute little story a guy no one knew about, he would volunteer to help out with the defensive ends, kind of be a human
sandwiches on the practice field.
A human tackling dummy. I'm not sure you can do that. Once you become a starting kicker, you can't go back to that. Whoa. You can't volunteer to be hit by the defensive lineman. But for him, hopefully he does okay at camp and it makes a couple kicks in the preseason game and gets a chance to go somewhere else. Because his resume is not bad. It wasn't bad last year. I thought he was fine. He was solid. I just think it sure seems like they made their mind-ups about Eddie Pinheiro already.
Yeah, I mean, he showed enough last year, I think, that he should get considered, somewhere. I mean, the Chargers are always looking for a kicker, right? I mean, the Chargers are always that team. They can never have a kicker and they can never stay healthy. It's pretty unbelievable there. But all right, so we got next week. We got We got minicamp. We'll have a show next week, of course. And maybe we might save our show for next week till Thursday, till everything kind of wraps up. We'll recap really the last little bit of action that we get to see out here until training camp.
We'll have a live breakdown of all of Connor Cook's throws last week. We'll chart every one of his throws next week and reveal the results.
That's another topic you wanted to get to, is that he's...
we'll save it for next week. We're teasing it. We're teasing our Connor Cook thing the next week.
So everyone back there in East Lansing, all our Michigan State fans, we are going to cover every throw made by Connor Cook next week, or not made.
I think E.J. Manuel fans might enjoy next week's show.
How many E.J. Manuel fans?
Oh, come on. He's got a lot. E.J. is a quality guy.
I like E.J.
He did fine last year.
He did. In Denver, that offense looked good after he came in. Not to say that it looked better with him over Carr, but on that one particular day, once he came in, the offense looked great.
I think that one deep throw to Crabtree, was it that game or a different game? But the one deep throw to Crabtree made one of the best throws all year last year from a Raiders quarterback. How about that, Derek?
Wow. So are you starting a quarterback controversy? The way we've talked about this, the way Q&As go or these sessions go, that you just started a quarterback controversy right now.
Obviously, I pop off too much. I got to stop doing that. So, I just think EJ is going to be the guy. We'll talk about it more next week.
All right, guys, everybody go head over to Apple Podcast, give us a 5-star rating, subscribe, go over to Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, SoundCloud. I think we're coming soon to Spotify. Hopefully be there soon. And we'll talk to you guys again next week.
Have a great weekend.